Shit. Money. Way too much money. That was the necessity I needed most but least desired to receive, especially like this. I anticipated finding the same worn-out socks, t-shirts, and pants. Instead, I stumbled upon a heap of cash. A whole lot of it. Damn. Who in their right mind would possess a small turquoise suitcase, aside from myself? I never even spared a second glance before snatching it at the airport. It was so hideous, it was shameful to be seen with it. The color was so repulsive that after a brief phase of enthusiasm, even my wife concluded that I should be the one to use it. With us being significantly in debt, a situation exacerbated by her spending habits and lack of income, disposing of the suitcase was out of the question. Time and again, I hoped it would finally give in under my rough handling and that of the airport staff, but stubbornly, it refused to give up. Who the fuck would own a small turquoise suitcase, apart from me? I never even took a second look before grabbing it at the airport. The thing was so ugly, it was an embarrassment to be seen with. The color was so gross that after a short phase of enthusiasm, even my wife had decided I should be the one to use it. We were quite a bit in debt, a status to which her shopping habits and lack of income contributed materially, so trashing the thing was out of the question. Time and again, I had hoped it would finally break under my harsh treatment and that of the airport personnel, but just to spite me, it refused to die. The upside was, it stood out like a beacon of grotesque gaudiness on any baggage carousel, and I was pretty sure no one would ever steal it. What I didn't expect was to ever encounter a second one just like it. Still, that's what had happened. This one wasn't mine, some other loser had obviously been the victim of a shopaholic wife and I had grabbed his suitcase by mistake. For some strange reason, I had the happy thought that I was finally rid of mine. With the damn thing, I had lost my beloved Banana Slugs t-shirt and some of my tools. What I got instead were $100 bills. My tools were pretty heavy, and my employer was used to paying the excess weight, as he was too cheap to let me fly business. I was used to carrying around 30 kilos, so when I grabbed it from the baggage carousel, the weight seemed right. A quick Google search on my phone told me 30 kilos of cash equaled roughly $3 million. Damn. How could any self-respecting crime organization employ someone who managed to lose an ugly turquoise suitcase with a few $1,000,000? If that idiot had managed to do his job, I wouldn't have this damn problem. There was no way in hell this money was legitimate. Nobody carries millions around in a suitcase this ugly. This money was definitely as dirty as an old man's joke, and my guess was that the owners were not famous for their politeness and humor. The money and I were currently in very close proximity, and if the owner found us this way, I would be dead and he'd have the money back. I had no problem with the latter, but was less enthusiastic about the former. The problem seemed pretty unique. What to do with too much money? Just dump it somewhere? What if I had been recorded by some security camera? Someone named Greasy Tony or One-Eye Luigi might want to talk to me about it. While my feet were in a bucket of concrete and my teeth were littering the floor, they might be fatally, to me, disappointed to learn I had dumped their money just to get rid of it. No, dumping it was out of the question. What about returning it? Well, to whom? It seemed important to ask the right mug. Hey, you look like a criminal. Would you mind taking $3 million from me? Would probably end with a positive response. Still, Greasy Tony wouldn't like that either. The only solution seemed to be, keep it. Use it to buy myself protection? No. The only way was to not use it at all. Nobody must ever know I had it. More important, it might save me a few fingers or a life if it was still complete when Greasy Tony visited me. Frantically, I tried to remember whether my own suitcase contained any info about my identity, but couldn't think of any. Slowly, I closed the suitcase again, not even wanting to look at the money, and wondered how I'd do my job without my tools and where I'd get a toothbrush. Vinny said my car needs a new gearbox. Misery. You could also finally do something about the leaking faucet. Pure misery. I hated being on the road. The dripping is driving me crazy. I hated returning home, as well. Why exactly did I keep living, anyway? Laziness? Clara's husband fixes such things right away. Clara's husband mostly sits at home, while I'm working my ass off. Mentioning that fact yet again wouldn't improve anything. I knew that for a fact. I had tried. I was really experienced at being unhappy. It was the one thing I really excelled at. You do nothing for me. Nothing. Of course, there was no use in arguing. Years ago, I had briefly considered recording those talks, so I could play the recording instead of talking. I didn't expect that move to make things any better, so I usually just remain silent instead. I'm off to Clara's. Get some shit done around here for a change. That's how my loving wife greeted me. Not welcome back or I've missed you, just the usual bickering. Of course, I wasn't exactly friendly towards her either. We had one of those unhappy relationships where nobody even remembers how things went wrong. Yeah, I've missed you too, I replied sarcastically. Cut the crap. My wife, the last of the great romantics. The closing door put a merciful end to the unpleasant conversation. Sighing, I moved towards the kitchen. I grabbed an empty glass. Always the same one. 3 pieces of ice. Diet Coke. The small black bowl. Potato chips. Always exactly the same spot on the sofa. The Coke on the corner of the small table. The chips right next to it. Next is the remote. Always nicely aligned. I looked at it and felt nauseous. I might be going crazy. Who lives this kind of life? Repeating shit time and again. It wouldn't be so bad if it didn't make me feel so unhappy. I couldn't stop my thoughts from returning to the suitcase. Could that be my escape from this living nightmare? Sure, I'd risk my life, but was risking the shit I called a life really so bad? I sometimes wished I was dead anyway. Problem was, while I didn't enjoy living, I was afraid to die. No, the suitcase wasn't a solution for anything, it was just another problem. Damn, I need to remember to hide it. It could hardly remain in my trunk. Half an hour later, I returned to the sofa feeling good. The old treehouse, left behind by former tenants, which Doris had bugged me endlessly to tear down, was the perfect hiding place. The thing was absurdly high in a huge tree, so I never got around to actually removing it. I felt good about that hiding spot and about the broken monotony of my life. I felt excitement for the first time in years. 3,000? Seriously? For a damn gearbox? Sadly, yes. Doris was in a pretty mellow mood that morning and I didn't want to rock the boat too much. I had no idea how we were supposed to come up with that kind of money, but she acted as if she at least recognized a problem and didn't just drop it into my lap. What about Vinny? Could he help? I suggested. Vinny was Doris' cousin. In my opinion, the man was a total asshole. He was a huge guy and took great pains to keep up his hostility towards me at all times. He also owned a rundown car repair shop. When I asked for anything, I could be sure he made a special family price by adding 10%. He liked Doris, though, maybe a bit too much, so she might be able to get him to help. That is already Vinny's price. Fuck. A new gearbox. We had no money at all, except the trifling $3 million in cash sitting in the old treehouse. All our problems would be over if I just used it, but so perhaps would be my life. No. I couldn't use it. My life might not be worth much, but hopefully more than a Miata gearbox. Look, I'll try to find a used one on eBay. All we need is Vinny's car lift and maybe a little advice and a helping hand. He won't like that. Yes, he probably wanted to use our bad luck to make some money. I will see what I can do. Damn, the guy was clearly watching me. He pretended to stack shelves in our local supermarket. I admit he was damn good, handling the packages as if he'd been doing it for ages. I saw through it, though. Where was the original shelf-stacking guy? This one was swarthy and muscular. They always had a scrawny kid for the job. What had happened to him? I imagined his corpse lying somewhere in the woods and felt sorry for the kid. I quickly grabbed the few things I had been ordered to get and left the shop as quickly as possible while trying to look cool and unaffected. In the parking lot, I immediately noticed another unknown face. He was throwing paper into a dumpster, but like shelf-stacking guy, he watched me as inconspicuously as possible. Had they sent a team of 2 hitmen, or were these guys just here to check me out? Shit, I was about to go crazy. No self-respecting mafia hitman would stack shelves or dump waste just to kill a nobody like me. They would just get it over with, shoot me and then go do whatever those guys did in their free time. Still, the underlying feeling of panic was hard to quell, and I kept watching my rearview mirror on the drive home. "Thank you so much, honey," Doris gushed as soon as I delivered my loot. That shocked me even more than the unknown guys in the supermarket. Doris was being nice to me. Why now? Could that be a coincidence? Unlikely, but how could she possibly know about the money? How should I even react? I wasn't used to peaceful conversations at home anymore. "My pleasure, honey," I replied, trying to sound sincere. We both delivered Oscar-worthy performances and both pretended tea. Not know what was going on, which wasn't too far from the truth in my case. There was only one possible reason for such a mood swing. She certainly hadn't suddenly rediscovered her love for me. She knew about the money and wanted to know where it was. "You want omelet and orange juice with your breakfast?" Okay, we were deep into the twilight zone at that point. "Oh, that would be so nice, sweetheart," I replied, trying to sound loving and not too confused. Things continued like this, which turned out to be more stressful for me than the usual bitching or even possible hitmen lying in wait at the supermarket. Later, when I was sitting in front of the telly, she again surprised me by attempting to sit right at my side. It took a great effort to not shy away. I wasn't used to close contact with other humans anymore. I didn't know how to handle the situation. I could deal with bitchy by being ignorant. That was our usual modus operandi. Being nice was much more work, but I tried. I really did. "Michael," she began and immediately stopped again, obviously trying to find the right words. "I know things haven't been easy between us recently. Don't think it has been only your fault." I just looked at her, nodding ever so slightly. She looked empathetic, caring, like the Doris of the distant past. "We started off so good, and I really thought you were the one," she continued. "Something went wrong along the way, and I don't even know what. Work, worries, everyday life, I don't know." I nodded in agreement once again. "Sadly, yes. I feel the same way. I never wanted us to grow apart like this. Don't you ever think that I didn't love you." I noticed the past tense. I just can't see any way to escape this treadmill. It wore me down, changed me, and it changed you, too. I thought about that for a while, and I appreciated her giving me that time. Unfortunately, my contemplation led to no result at all. "You think it can be saved?" I finally asked, not really knowing if I even wanted to. "No," she said, sounding honestly sad. "It's too late for that. We can still live together, and we can make things better. We can try to be nicer. That burning love won't come back, though." That was harsh, but she was probably right. "You could do that? Continue living with me without love? Please don't think I don't like you. I can easily see myself living with you for a while longer. I think I'm looking for a break, for a way to escape this endless repetition. I just wish we had found that way together. You just don't love me anymore, right?" "Not anymore, no. I won't apologize, as I'm sure you feel the same." I nodded, and we just sat there, staring into the telly without seeing anything. It was a good moment. We felt close again for the first time in an eternity, both knowing it would probably be the last time. I still didn't know if she knew anything about the money, but right then, I suspected not. I hoped she was not that cold and calculating and had just an unusually mellow phase. Maybe she, too, sensed we had come to the end and it was her way of saying goodbye. In any case, she started to massage my neck, which had been her signal that she was willing to have sex many years ago. The whole talk was surprising, but this really put me in a quandary. I didn't love her anymore, she didn't love me anymore, and we were about to get used to the idea of having to part ways. Was sex really the best idea at that point? No, it wasn't, but who cared? I wanted this, and so did she. We got up from the sofa, as any kind of intimacy outside of the bedroom had always been unthinkable for her. I followed her there and had the first doubts about being able to stay in the mood. In the bedroom, the first thing she did was switch off the lights. Sighing, I remembered that my seeing her naked body even during sex had always been some kind of taboo. My mood was already mostly ruined by then. In the near darkness, I listened to her undressing and decided to do the same, mostly to not make things any more awkward. A few seconds later, I felt her naked body next to mine. Any doubts about my mood left my head immediately. I still desired her on some level. Feeling her naked skin painfully reminded me of the past, of the burning need we once had for each other. My old, long-buried feelings flared up again, and I kissed her wherever I could reach her. We soon were entwined on the bed, passionately kissing and moaning. Yes, she still had feelings for me, as well. Nobody was that good an actor. My old Doris was still in there, somewhere, closely guarded by the new one. I wanted to kiss her everywhere, smell her, taste her, even if it was for the last time. I tried to savor everything I could get, but she stopped me by guiding me on top of her. No heads below the waists, I remembered, and complied while trying to suppress my disappointment. I entered her while we kissed frantically. We were lost in the moment, forgetting everything around us, enjoying each other. It was like a time machine, transporting us back to happier times. Softly grinding into her pelvis, I remembered how she liked it. She needed time and gentle movements, and I enjoyed providing that. Slowly and methodically, I built her up until she exploded violently. I gave her a bit of time until I picked up the pace for my own climax. Sated and happy, we savored the moment and I stayed in place. I kissed her once again, taking in her delicious post-sex smell and taste. It was an unexpectedly intimate moment. We both enjoyed it thoroughly, trying to forget that it would be the last one for us. I hated that damn car repair shop. It was dark. Yes, there were windows, but the last time they had been clean was when they were new, many decades ago. Now, they were just a tad lighter brown than the walls. The room was stuffed full of shit, mostly tires and boob calendars. There were objects I couldn't identify, perhaps nobody could. Entering it was like entering some foreign sanctum. It wasn't exactly forbidden, but I sure wasn't welcome either. I never figured out how many guys worked there. They appeared and vanished all the time, and I was sort of sure there were more than 4 and less than 10. It didn't help that they all roughly looked the same, short cropped hair, lots of muscles and tattoos. All that was missing were some bars on the windows, and it would look exactly like a high-security prison. There was only one car lift and one tire mounting machine. I had no idea why so many men worked there and what they did all day long, but I suspected most of it wasn't exactly legal. Everything looked cheap and worn, there was no way all those guys could earn a living with it. The backyard was extensive, and looked like a forested parking lot. Some cars looked like they hadn't been moved since the Stone Age, others were changing all the time. None of them had any price tags or other signs showing they were on sale. Many looked way too expensive for the rundown place. I was sticking to my usual don't ask policy. Entering the shop, I found Vinny standing with 2 other guys near the tire machine. As usual, nobody seemed to be working or being bothered about that fact. Earning money by manual labor didn't seem a main priority. As usual, everyone completely ignored my presence. I stood in the middle of the shop like a clueless idiot. God, I hated those dominance games. Finally, Doris entered behind me and Vinny graced her with some interest. As usual, it was mainly focused on her cleavage. She never seemed to mind and always dressed accordingly. I never complained, as we usually needed something from him whenever we saw him, and I understood why she did it. After half an hour of being either ignored or barked at rudely, I was finally able to get busy on the damn Miata. As expected, nobody helped me, not even Doris, but I could at least use the car lift and the tools. My wife was busy talking to the guys in Vinny's office. Miraculously, their number had increased from 3 to 4, and I had no idea where the additional guy came from or which one it was. The office was separated from the shop by what once was glass. I suspected if you removed the glass now, the grime alone would still do the job just fine. The boob pick density in there was even higher, and with 5 people, the place was absolutely packed. They were talking animatedly until they suddenly stopped and all turned around to look at me. Cold chills ran down my back. Shit. The money. They somehow knew about the money. I knew they were all criminals of some sort, so why had I even come here? Those guys had a sixth sense about such things. Suddenly, they started talking again, but shot glances in my direction now and then. Right then, I much preferred their previous neglect. I continued to work on the damn car, trying to act as if nothing happened. Nice car. I jumped in surprise and cut my hand on a hose clamp. There was a guy standing right behind me. How the fuck had such a big muscly caveman managed to sneak up on me like that? His grin revealed a few gold teeth and distorted the huge scar that ran across his mouth. A big piece of barbed wire was tattooed above his brow. To me, it looked as unappealing as the huge spider tattoo on his bare belly or the tears under both eyes. The guy had to be almost 2 meters tall. All his body fat seemed to be assembled in a pot belly, the rest was pure muscles. All in all, he looked scary as hell. To any alien happening to land right in that shop, we would have looked like 2 different species. What? I croaked and hated how frightened it sounded. Nice car, he patiently repeated, as if he was used to talking to morons. Why did he want to talk about the car? It wasn't nice. It was just a broken old Miata, worth less than one of his teeth. Oh. Thanks. He looked satisfied that he had finally gotten through to the idiot. Gearbox trouble? Okay, I was sure he knew about my money right then. Here was no way he could be even vaguely interested in my gearbox problem. Sensing a trap in those questions, all I could do was nod silently. You're not the talkative type, right? Oh my god, he couldn't be any clearer. If I wasn't willing to talk, he'd make me. He certainly was some kind of expert in the pain and communications field. Sorry. I shrugged my shoulders to gain some time. I'm a bit stuck with this bolt. Try heating it, buddy. With that, he slapped me on the back, which made me jump and left the shop. What the hell had just happened? I looked back to the office and just saw Doris pointing at me as they were all laughing. Was it because I had just embarrassed myself or because they were already dividing my money? Wait, did I just call it my money? Seriously? I had to remind myself that my main objective was still to get rid of it without having myself killed in the process. After a while, Doris joined me at the car, but avoided touching any of the tools. When will you be finished? The new Doris was back on duty. Impatient, ungrateful, demanding. As if the previous night had never happened. Doris, I'm just a vending machine technician. Nobody here is offering to help me, and I have no real idea how to do this at all. Try to have it fixed by the evening, okay? I'd like to visit Monica tomorrow morning for a late breakfast. Wow, even for Doris, this was a rare form. What about helping me? Of course, she just ignored that absurd idea. You know what, Vinny told me about a way to make some money. Remember that beautiful turquoise suitcase I gave you? Well, someone's looking for one just like it and is willing to pay for leads. My blood froze instantly, and I was sure Doris noticed. What? Why would someone pay for such an? I almost said ugly thing, but that wouldn't be wise. For a suitcase like that? I don't know, and it might be better not to ask too many questions, if you know what I mean. There has been some kind of mix-up at the airport, it seems. You're sure you picked up the right one? There can't be too many of those around. Sure. My clothes and tools were in it, so it had to be mine. I see. Say, where is yours anyway? I couldn't find it this morning. Damn, she had already started to look for the money. The gig was truly up. The only question was whether she had already sold my life. In my trunk. She nodded approvingly and smiled, before adding. Glad to hear it, honey. Glad to hear it, she repeated, sweet as honey. It just seems the other contained some tools, just like those a vending machine technician would need. Damn, I was toast. She definitely knew what was going on. That was quick. I expected to be found eventually, but not that soon, and not by my own wife. Just out of curiosity, how much are they willing to pay, honey? How much was my life worth? 200 grand, honey. That's a lot of money. Shit. She had already sold my life. I was certain now. 200 was way too much for Doris to pass up. So what do we do now, Doris? How do we handle this? We don't need to do anything, honey. Please have this fixed by the evening, okay? This? The suitcase, the car, or my miserable life? The car, honey. The car. Sure, honey. With that, she just turned around and left me on death row. We had taken my car to come here and I still had the key, so I had no idea who would take her home. I was still in shock. Not knowing what else to do, I looked around and realized I was completely alone. When had that happened? Okay, time to take stock. First, forget about the gearbox. That thought made me feel good. Second, go to the police? Not an option. They would either not believe me, not be able to protect me, or arrest me on general principles. What else could I do? My only advantage was the money. I had to use it to vanish, and I had to do so quickly. How does a person go into hiding? I didn't have the slightest idea. I was just a vending machine technician. Still, it seemed to be my only option. What about Doris? I was still not sure if she had ratted me out or not. Could I really leave her behind, alone and without money? What if she hadn't said a damn thing to Vinny? Just for my conscience's sake, I needed to find out without getting dead. Tentatively, I sneaked out of the shop through the roll-up door. There was still no one around. The botanical parking lot in the back seemed empty. Why had they left in a hurry? To get their weapons? Unlikely. I was no match for them, even unarmed. To get instructions from the boss in the background? That might be possible. They probably didn't discuss such things on the phone and they certainly weren't anywhere near the top of the pecking order. I vaguely heard my wife squeaking in the distance. Failing to fight my curiosity, I sneaked behind an old school bus that would more or less cover me until I reached the small rundown caravan Vinny seemed to live in. I knew that Vinny had money, so the caravan was either understatement, a cover, or simply ignorance. The thing was in an appalling state. My guess was that it once must have been white or beige. That guess was not based on its current state, but on my experience that those damn things were all either white or beige. It was currently somewhere between green and brown and generally seemed in the process of being reclaimed by nature. The windows were tinted in that brown 80s style. It would have been impossible to peek inside, had not one of them been open. I hated Vinny. The caravan was repulsive. I didn't even care much about my wife anymore. Why was I even sneaking up on that window to get a look at the combination of all three? Did I really need to know? Would it change anything? Did I wait until I'd answered those valid questions? No. Driven by morbid curiosity, I just went ahead and looked inside. My first thought was how well the thick gold chain on his massive, hairy chest matched the 80s caravan. He was humping away on top of my wife, grunting like he was dubbing an old porn movie. He kept looking at her expectantly, as if waiting for any kind of reaction. Doris was never really active during sex, but this was taking it to the extreme. She was looking around, focused on nothing in particular, as there certainly was nothing worth looking at inside that shitty caravan. That clearly included Vinny. She even inspected her nails at one point, which just seemed to spur him on even more. The whole caravan was shaking. That must have hurt, but she was doing her best to keep her blasé attitude. This was their game, I realized, and they had perfected it over a long time. He got off on aloof and ignorant partners. He wanted to be humiliated during sex. I had no idea what had gone wrong in his life to make him tick this way, but in that moment, I almost pitied him. His sweat dripped onto her chest. She ignored it, just like the rest of his efforts. Just as I broke my reverent observation and moved back to the shop as quickly as I could, I heard him roar like a bear, announcing to the world what a sick puppy he was. Okay, Doris had cheated, and she had obviously done so often enough to perfect their sad version of sex. She always had a thing for bad boys, and especially for Vinny. It was almost a bit insulting. I was of average build, under no illusions of being exceptionally intelligent, and I certainly wasn't a fighter. Still, on occasion people had assured me I was very good looking. Doris was never among them, but I could at least assume I wasn't hideously ugly. What did she see in Vinny? It was almost absurd. His face was never pretty to begin with, and the numerous battle marks didn't lend him character. They just made him even uglier. He was almost bald, had a lot of ugly scars, even more ugly tattoos, and his whole face was somehow distorted. On the other hand, he was huge, muscular, and an accomplished fighter. He was the complete opposite of me, so her choosing him as my replacement was a bit disturbing. The sex was obviously physically unsatisfying for her, so I had to assume she got her kicks out of the underlying power game. She could humiliate and dominate this dangerous man. Or maybe all of it was a purely financial consideration. I didn't know and realized that was absolutely okay. In any case, she could have him. They seemed to be happy with one another in their own unique way. Time to leave for good. I decided to leave the Miata and its broken gearbox in its new home, Vinny's garage. It wasn't my problem anymore. I briefly wondered if Vinny would be able to loosen that damn bolt by heating it. Still, that wasn't the most important problem at that point. Staying alive was. Where could I hide? How could I get the money without being killed? Were there really guys out there who sold new identities, like that guy in Breaking Bad? How could I find them? Did I need a gun? I had few advantages on my side, but one was my stealth car. I had an older Toyota Corolla that hadn't been washed for a few years. I doubted even Doris would be able to recognize it. To her, it was just that lump sitting in the driveway, but she never deigned to look at it closely. Vinny probably didn't even know such cars existed. It was as nondescript as a car could be. I decided to buy a few supplies, hide my car behind a supermarket dumpster, calm down and wait for the night to fall. The wait seemed endless, especially as I imagined Vinny and Doris frantically busy, tearing down our house in search of my money. The sudden boredom also meant I couldn't look away from some hard facts anymore. My life was what specialists call a steaming pile of horseshit. My life being in danger and me not caring about that was a good indicator about the state of things. My wife banging her junkyard cousin and me not particularly caring about that, either, was another one. Yes, my life was shit and I had been too busy looking away from that glaringly obvious fact for years. I was Fina. LLY about to do something about it, although I had been pushed into action against my will. However this played out, I would most certainly not continue living the shitty life I had, which was a big relief. I mused about how life used to push me around and soil my dreams. Doris and I had been wildly in love at some point. She had been a completely different person back then, but I guess so had I. She was vivacious, caring, interested, full of life and optimism. I had been ambitious, thoughtful, and loving. Where had that gone? It was a gradual, insidious thing. I should have noticed, but I didn't. Our love slipped away, little by little, unnoticed and unmourned, until one day, one moment, I realized that we were dead, walking, going through the motions, but dead. We never talked about it, but it seemed we each blamed the other. As a result, we pulled away from each other even more, waiting for the first move, trying to punish the other when it didn't come. I fled from the tension by working more and more, even demanding to be on the road as much as possible. I hated it, but I hated being at home even more. She retaliated by perfecting her insufferable bitch persona. It might have been her helpless way of trying to reach me, I realized. It didn't matter, though, it was much too late to fix anything even back then. After a while, sex was used as a weapon. She withheld it, I retaliated by not caring about it. The game evolved until we lived as brother and sister. Then we became enemies. Money became one of the main bones of contention. she was focused more and more on it. She insisted on staying at home at some point, probably to increase the pressure on me. I reacted by choosing a career path that precluded any chance of promotion. We were a completely fucked up couple. Someone should write a book about us, except I suspected we weren't that unusual at all. Did I mourn losing Doris? Strangely, I didn't. I mourned the loss of the dreams we once had, the life we could have lived, the way we squandered that for a petty power play. I didn't mourn losing her as a person. Finally, it was dark outside and I was released from my unpleasant reflections. I felt like a pervert, hiding behind a bush in the dark, watching a house. In this case it was my own house, well, Vinny's to be precise, and it was unlit. This was either a trap or Doris was still enjoying the luxurious splendor of Vinny's caravan. After an hour, I decided that further observation would bring no new results. I could either go inside or leave. Problem was, I had nowhere to go to and no real plan. I at least needed my damn money and a few personal effects. That meant going into the backyard and probably springing any trap they might have prepared. For a guy who had pondered suicide for years, I was behaving surprisingly cowardly. I finally decided just to get it over with, but with the added finesse of entering the house through the back door. I probably would never have fixed the squeaking door if it had been just Doris' demand, just to spite her, but it had annoyed me enough to do it a few weeks before. I now thanked my thoughtfulness in WD-40, as I could enter the house noiselessly, like a ghost. Okay, I would have, had I not stepped onto one of Doris' Amazon packages that the delivery guy used to put right behind the usually unlocked back door. Some bubble wrap popped, announcing my presence to whatever army was hiding to ambush me. Still, everything remained silent. I stood in the darkness with a pounding heart, just managing not to soil my pants. Nothing happened. Luckily, I knew my way around the house and managed to reach the bedroom without any further incidents. My plan was to grab a few spare clothes in the almost perfect darkness and vanish before anyone knew what was happening. I found my gym bag, which had never been used for its intended purpose, and threw it onto the bed. Next were a few socks. I tried to feel the bag's position in the darkness to put them inside. Instead, I felt what was clearly a foot. Surprised, I jumped backwards a bit, knocking over the hideously ugly floor lamp Doris had bought just to spite me. With a pounding heart, I waited for anyone to come and check what the ruckus was about and kill me in the process. I really hadn't expected to find a foot in my bed. More important, the owner hadn't reacted to being touched at all. Okay, the time for my perfect stealth operation was over. I grabbed my phone and switched on the flashlight. Doris. She lay in the bed, which was not unusual in itself. I mean, it was her bed after all. She was naked, which was a bit more unusual. She had made huge efforts to hide her body from me for years, even when we had sex that last time. It still looked nice, but didn't really appeal to me, nonetheless. One reason was the hole in her forehead and the pool of blood underneath her. This was absolutely not the time to reflect on anything, but I ignored that and still thought about our life together. I was sorry to see her dead, but wasn't exactly racked with grief, either. I postponed deciding if I should feel bad about my lack of emotions when I heard someone climbing the stairs. Someone who didn't know where the creaking board was. Only Doris and I knew which one that was, so that distinction wasn't exactly helpful. I switched off the flashlight and retreated into the corner, hoping the darkness would conceal me enough to give me some kind of surprise element. That always worked in the movies. He simply switched on the light and looked straight at me. Shit. It was Heated Bolt Guy from the repair shop. He looked at me in a surprisingly friendly way. So did you loosen that bolt? No, I croaked. You're still not the most talkative guy, right? What happened to Doris? I asked, not making any sense at all. I'd be dead within a few minutes, so why did I even want an information about a woman I didn't even care about anymore? Just business, man. It's always just business. The boss decides what needs to be done. And you do it? Sometimes he does it himself, he said, nodding towards the bed. I noticed the sheets were rumpled, so it seemed they had their usual joyless jackhammer sex for one last time before he ended their torrid love affair for good. Her being dead also meant she had lost all usefulness for them, so it was safe to assume they already had all the information she could give them. So it was cheaper to kill her than to pay her? I asked, mimicking the good guys from the movies, getting all the important info from the villain before they were about to be killed. Only they were always saved in the last minute, which didn't seem likely in my case. Right. As I said, just business. Okay, I croaked. What's going to happen now? More business, he answered while starting to move towards me. For some reason, he put his gun on the table behind him. It had no silencer, and he probably didn't want to disturb the neighbors. That was very thoughtful. Mrs. Anderson was pretty fragile and easily worried. I wondered whether Vinny had used a gun with a silencer when he shot Doris, or if he just didn't care. Nothing personal, he added, as if that excused everything. He calmly grabbed my neck as I stood there like a rabbit watching a snake. While I felt the pressure on my neck increase, I learned that my arms were too short to reach him. They flailed around helplessly while he calmly watched me die. He looked at me in a way that made me think the guy liked me, although we hardly knew each other. As a final insult, the last thing I'd ever feel was this appalling heavy snow globe Doris had bought for a ridiculous amount of money. As soon as she learned how much I hated it, she decided to keep it on the windowsill, not just for Christmas, but all year long. I was already starting to get lightheaded when I gripped it firmer and swung it towards Heated Bolt Guy's head without much thought. He seemed to have bent his arms a bit by then, or I wouldn't have been able to reach his head. There was a dull thumping sound, followed by me gasping for air and another dull sound when he hit the floor. I enjoyed the simple and underrated luxury of being able to breathe for a few seconds before I looked at a second pool of blood, leaking from yet another head. Dying was becoming the thing to do in my bedroom, it seemed, and I decided to leave before I joined the trend. I hastily resumed packing, which was greatly expedited by the light Heated Bolt Guy had switched on. I quickly grabbed some documents that might be important and even took his gun. I never felt the need to own one before, but it seemed a good idea when being hunted down by a drug cartel. Or whoever. Afterwards, I did the obvious thing, which was taking stock of my life. I was a widower, I had killed a person, I had lost my whole existence, and all of my belongings fit into one large gym bag. I felt good. I felt all that I needed right then was a few million in cash, which I happened to have. I suddenly panicked, realizing I hadn't yet checked if they had found it. When I hid the money, the spot seemed brilliant, but right then it seemed idiotically obvious. I rushed back out of the back door after stepping on that damn package once again and quickly climbed the huge tree, using the remains of the steps some previous tenant had nailed into it. There it was. The turquoise monstrosity had never looked as beautiful as in that moment. I loved that thing. I briefly opened it and checked if the money was still there before realizing they could just as well have replaced it with a bomb. There I was again. The usual clueless fool with my usual ugly turquoise suitcase. I stood on the street, looking back at what had once been my home. Walking away should be easy. The place was rented, I didn't like anything inside, we had no kids and not too many good memories. Inside of what was once my bedroom, my wife was lying dead in her own blood. We might have hated each other in the end, she had tried to sell my life, she had cheated on me with her ugly cousin. Still, this was the woman I once loved, the woman I had wanted to share my life with, the woman I shared my dreams with. Something had clearly gone wrong at some point, long before I got the damn money against my will. Something had gone off the rails, and leaving like this felt like a monumental failure. I still wondered why Vinny hadn't found the money. He either didn't have enough time to look properly or was just even dumber than me. It didn't really matter. All that counted was that I still had the money, my life, and my Corolla. I soon let the mighty four-cylinder hum to life and hurled the car down the street with a gentle push. Remembering the movies, I checked the rear mirror, making sure nobody followed me. I briefly thought about the two corpses lying in my bedroom. I decided they would be Vinny's problem. It was his house, and now it was his mess. I knew exactly where I wanted to get away from, but sadly, I had no idea where I wanted to get away to. I decided to drive around aimlessly until I lost interest and stay wherever that was. South. I wanted to go south. I had always hated the cold, and it had gotten worse as I got older. I briefly thought about quitting my job, but decided not to bother. I hated my boss almost as much as my previous life in general, including the cold. Maybe this whole weird development was a good thing. I was as good as dead, but this last adventure might be exactly what I needed. As usual, breakfast was a sad affair. Time and again, the elderly innkeeper lady had assured me this fine establishment had once been some kind of international tourist hotspot. Right then, nothing hinted at it. It was a well-worn hotel, bordering on shabby, overlooking the lake, which looked like an oversized brownish puddle. The main advantages were that they accepted cash, asked no questions, and the thing was as remote as a hotel can be. Paying cash suited me just fine, as I happened to have plenty of it and no qualms about using it. There was no use in keeping the money complete, they wanted me dead anyway. I had hidden most of my cash in a new location in the woods and just had a few thousand on me. There were only a handful of guests, and I always wondered what they were doing there at all. They were all men, they all looked unhappy, and they all left in the morning and returned in the evening. I had no idea what they did in between. I had no idea what to do with my own time. Somehow, I had imagined being on the run from the mafia would be more exciting, stressful, and dangerous. Instead, I ran around the puddle endlessly and was bored the rest of the time. I always looked forward to the meals, not because of the quality, but because they interrupted the boredom. Still, the hotel made me feel relatively safe, as I could immediately check any newcomer. I knew the guys who currently stayed there and they all seemed harmless. Right then, I was gladly willing to trade boredom for relative safety. I didn't miss Doris at all. On the contrary, her being removed from my life was like a burden gone from my shoulders. I didn't even feel sorry for the way she died. I briefly pondered if I should feel bad about my uncaring ways, but remembering how she deceived me helped. I checked the news for information about her or somebody who might be heated bolt guy, but surprisingly, nothing appeared. It seemed the mob was somehow able to sweep everything under the rug. I guess it helped that Vinny owned the house we lived in. After a few weeks, I hated my new life almost as much as the one I had before Doris' unfortunate demise. Sure, her mood swings had been unbearable, I hated my job, and everything had been repetitious as hell. Still, at least something was happening, even if it was just a malfunctioning vending machine. The hotel by the lake began to feel like a prison. Plus, people were starting to ask questions. It was pretty obvious I wasn't a tourist, and some, including the innkeeper, were starting to become curious. So far, I had managed to evade their questions, but I felt the pressure rising. Because of that, I didn't fall into my usual paranoid worrying when some new guests arrived. I was happy to let them divert some of the unwanted attention. The newcomers were two guys who arrived together, followed shortly by a single woman. The woman could have been attractive, had she made some effort, but she had clearly chosen not to. She wore a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, all of it well worn and speaking of lacking funds. I pitied her a bit, she was obviously there to hide from something or someone, just like I was. The guys caught my attention, though. They stared at me very briefly when they arrived, then looked away immediately. It was pretty obvious they were checking me out, but trying to be inconspicuous about it. They flunked. They were either gay or were looking for someone, most probably me. So it had begun, I thought. At least the leaden boredom was about to end, even though whatever excitement was in store likely included my own demise. I briefly wondered if I would meet Doris in hell, and the prospect motivated me to stay alive. I took action immediately, meaning I went to my room and hid there. Of course, I fumbled around with the damn gun all the time, not really expecting to stand a chance against two trained mafia hitmen. I waited for hours until lunchtime, but I could hardly hide and starve in my room. A few days later, I had mostly calmed down again and was desperate enough to look forward to the interaction with the innkeeper and the staff. She was a nice lady, just mind-numbingly boring and a bit fragile. I was surprised to see her serving lunch and cleaning up the tables. I hadn't expected her to do manual labor at her age. "George called in sick today, darn it," she muttered. Just as she was explaining her situation, the pile of plates she held was dangerously tilting towards me, as if it had already decided to follow the call of gravity. I quickly stepped up, stabilizing it. That wouldn't have been so bad if Pauline hadn't quit to follow her ex-husband, she continued unperturbed. I was more or less carrying the whole pile by then, which she hardly seemed to notice. She finally let go of the stack of plates completely, so she could wave her hand about to emphasize her situation. It is so difficult to find good workers these days. I zoned out, as I already knew the rest of her rant. No work ethics anymore, meaning no one willing to slave for a laughable amount of money. Her staff had explained the situation from their point of view more than once. I just sighed and carried the pile to the kitchen, where Joe the cook seemed to be under heavy pressure. He seemed to think I was some sort of godsend. After years with Doris, this was pleasant. Thank God you're helping, Michael. The old witch is slower than my old Yugo when the engine was broken. Take these outside, okay? I really appreciate it. He pointed at a few plates with what once had been hot food. I just shrugged, took them and carried them outside. Why not? I'd worked as a waiter to earn some bucks many years before. I was bored anyway, and to be honest, it felt good to help. Of course, the two new guys smirked, making crude remarks. The hooded woman, though, looked at me in a strange way. If I hadn't known better, I would have said the look was almost adoring. In any case, she smiled really nicely, and once again, I thought how beautiful she would look if she hadn't tried to hide it. You like it here? The guy asked, inspecting me unabashedly. Would a hitman be that brash? On the other hand, what other reason could anyone have for that question? Yeah, more or less, yes, I replied as noncommittally as I could while pretending to be busy with the frugal breakfast buffet. Really, what are you doing in this shithole? He laughed, ignoring the indignant looks the innkeeper lady shot in his direction. I decided he was either no killer, a dumb killer, or this was a brilliant way to make me think he wasn't one. Installation work in the steel plant, like Joe and me? No, not the steel plant. I'm just, enjoying the landscape. So there was a steel plant around, which solved the mystery of why anyone was staying there at all. He laughed out loud, like it was the best joke he'd ever heard. Landscape? There is landscape around? I relaxed. The guy was way too loud and obnoxious to be a mafia hitman. That other guy, though, always stared at me way too intensely. I would have to keep an eye on him. I opened the door to my room and was immediately pulled inside, catching me completely by surprise. My ass was on the bed before I had the chance to grasp what was going on. Two guys in my room. That's what was going on. Looking up into two gun barrels at once, that was another thing going on. And, of course, me feeling like a total idiot for being caught that easily. I had been watching all the men around me like a hawk, assessing potential threats. I had never even seen those two. Shit. My money was relatively safe in its hiding place in the woods, but my life obviously wasn't. They would want to know where the money was, and for me it seemed like a lose-lose situation. I was as good as dead anyway. All that was left to decide was whether they'd get the money and how painful my death was going to be. Having nothing to lose, I jumped up and tried to tackle one of them. He easily backhanded me and threw me back onto the bed. Touching him felt like wrestling with a rock and was just as much fun. Listen, dude. I don't care one way or another. You either tell us where the money is or I put a bullet between your eyes right away. Those are my orders from Vinny, and I really don't give a fuck either way. Tradition probably demanded me denying I had any money, but I knew it would be useless. The gig was up. I fay. Elte surprisingly calm. Okay, it seems I will soon be dead anyway. The question is just whether Vinny will be rich afterwards or not. Why would I want to give him the money? He looked puzzled for a moment, but his dumbness soon recovered. Really, dude, I don't give a shit. You either give us the money or I will off you right now. With that, he calmly grabbed a pillow to put on my face. Wait, that didn't make sense. The movie script said he would be willing to talk about this. Wait. You don't want the money. The rest was muffled by the pillow. Damn, he really didn't care. He just had to shoot me and would be done. Fuck, why had Vinny sent these idiots? They were too dumb for even simple logic. I felt slight pressure on the other side of the pillow and knew it was the gun pressed down into it. Shit, I really was going to die. I unsuccessfully tried to convince myself that this was okay and my life was shit anyway. Now that it was about to happen, the thought of dying suddenly didn't seem all that desirable anymore. They say that your life flashes before your eyes in the moment of death, and I really had no desire to see that shit once again. I faintly heard what sounded like 2 muffled shots and thought, that's it. I have been shot in the head. It seemed Vinny's idiots weren't the only ones struggling with logic. The guy's weight seemed to fall off me sideways, which confused me even more. I still didn't dare to touch that pillow until it was yanked from my face. The woman with the hoodie. What the fuck was she doing there? Why was she holding a gun with a silencer? Why did each of the guys have precisely one brand new hole in his head? How were we going to clean the bed and the carpet? Why did she suddenly look so damn hot and professional? What was my brilliant summation of all those questions? What? She countered. I had the feeling she was enjoying this and was willing to continue for a while. I mean, again, my eloquence was probably dazzling her. Good to know. She was unable to hide her grin completely. What? You already said that, Einstein. What's going on here? Ah, finally, a full sentence. A valid question. They are dead and you are alive. You have any opinion about that? How could she be joking in such a situation? I have. It would be unfortunate if it was the other way around. See? That's why I'm here. Have you done anything like this before? You mean saving clueless morons? I had to laugh, which seemed a bit inappropriate, given the serious circumstances. I felt the tickling of the adrenaline leaving and my muscles slowly relaxing. No, I mean kill 2 guys who were about to execute an eloquent, innocent man. Now it was her turn to laugh. My dear, you are neither eloquent nor innocent. That may be, but still, why did you save me? It's my job, she said and produced an official-looking badge. The most noticeable features were 3 big letters F, B and I. Wow, the government had saved me? Why bother? Did they need a vending machine technician for some secret government job? Why is saving me your job? I asked myself the same question over and over. Why couldn't I have learned to be something useful? Like plumber. Or wood carver. Pilot. Teacher. Whatever. I wouldn't have to kill idiots to save other idiots. I had to laugh again. No, I mean, why save me in particular? Oh, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you afterwards. That wouldn't make any sense, right? Probably not, and I'd rather avoid dying today. Okay, buddy, you need to help me. We need to clean up this mess. How? I mean, this is gruesome. That's their brains on the walls. Don't overthink it. It's just matter that's in the wrong place. We just need to move it to a more appropriate location, like a nice cozy landfill. Okay, tell me what to do, I answered, wondering why a government agent had to clean up such a mess. Shouldn't they just call someone who took care of it? You have this ugly old Corolla, right? Hey, how is that possible? She just laughed and understood what I was talking about. Nobody ever noticed my car. I'm a mutant, I can see invisible cars. And invisible guys, it seems. Oh, you're far from invisible, believe me. You just don't notice how the women around you are watching you. You're very good looking, yet not conceited. I like that in a guy, okay? Seriously? Doris had convinced me that I was overall rather mediocre. I started, not knowing how to deal with a compliment from an attractive woman. Yes, I have this old Corolla. What do we need to do? We need plastic wrap, brushes, and detergent. We need to steal a set of bed linens from the room service to replace these. Okay, let's go. It felt good to have something to do after weeks of waiting. We placed the Do Not Disturb sign on the door and off we went off on a surprisingly fun shopping trip. Why exactly am I the one scrubbing their brains from the wall? I inquired. Because it's been put on the wall to save your life. True, but you put it there. I knew I was going to lose this mock argument, but it distracted me from wringing out the bloody rag into that bucket once again. She sighed in an aggrieved way that should have reminded me of Doris, but somehow didn't. I should have shot you instead. I bet they wouldn't have a problem with removing you from the wall, she countered while finishing packing the guys into plastic wrap. I wondered how we were supposed to carry them out of the room. We had to do it soon, the room service people would ignore our sign at some point. True, but they might have shot you afterwards, fake FBI badge or not. She couldn't suppress her laugh anymore. I decided I liked it when she laughed. I guess I can't fool you, right? Pity, that thing is a master forgery and cost me $5 in the novelty shop. You should have spent that on some cheap glasses. Handsome guy, my ass. That is for me to decide. I already know you don't particularly like yourself, but I happen to disagree. That silenced me for a while. Was she serious or just playing with me? A woman like her couldn't really be interested, right? Maybe she just needed my help disposing of those idiots? No, for some reason I trusted her. A few hours later, the room was spotlessly clean. I guessed it was now the cleanest room in the whole hotel and hoped the room service wouldn't notice. The nameless dream woman and I were busy trying to imitate a cliché crime movie by carrying a corpse wrapped in plastic down the stairs of a cheap hotel late at night. Of course, I had the upper body side and was failing miserably. Hey, he's too heavy. Can't we just slide him down the stairs? She seemed to think about it for a few seconds. His head will bang on the stairs and wake everybody up. I can hold his head up. Okay, let's try it. I found myself in the weird situation of holding the head of a dead guy who had tried to kill me earlier while his body was pulled down the stairs by the beautiful woman who'd saved my life. A few weeks ago, such things weren't a regular part of my life, but I really enjoyed the new me. I could just do without those near-death experiences. It turned out the average mafia hitman was too big for a Corolla trunk. Somehow, the Toyota dealer had withheld that important piece of consumer advice. We had to fold down the rear seats, but the wrap ripped open while we heaved him around in a most undignified way. His dead eyes watched us working in silent accusation. That went well, I think. I summed things up after slamming the hatch shut. We both had to laugh. Yeah, we were pretty smooth. Let's dump him and try to do better with the second one. Practice makes perfect. At about 5 in the morning, we both fell into my bed, dead tired. I was even too worn out to be surprised at finding her head on my shoulder. We just fell asleep immediately. That night, I learned that crime can be hard work. As always these days, when I had nothing else to do, I found myself gawking at her. It didn't matter what she was doing, which was nothing at the time, except exposing her skin to the sun. Well, not quite all of it, sadly, as we were at a hotel pool once again. She had convinced me to move to a better place, and since I was sick of the damn lake, the shabby hotel and the repetitious talks with the innkeeper, I didn't put up too much resistance. She seemed pretty unconcerned about everything, and some of that seemed to rub off on me. Whenever I wasn't too busy enjoying the view, which she never seemed to mind, by the way, I kept asking myself who she was exactly and why she helped me in the first place. Still, I had never dared to voice those concerns. I guess I was afraid of the answers or of chasing her away by asking. To be honest, I enjoyed my time with her too much to rock the boat. How come you saved me anyway? I suddenly blurted out, interrupting my own thoughts about not asking questions. If I answer that, will you tell me why they wanted to kill you? I have no idea. No idea why I saved you, then. She smiled sweetly, and again, I had the impression she knew everything about me anyway and was just playing with me. Did she just enjoy toying with me before she killed me? Why did she save me in the hotel room then? Did she want to gain my trust until I told her where I'd hidden the money, which was still in its old hiding place? How could she know about the money, anyway? She would know about it if she was a mafia hitwoman. That made no sense. Why kill her colleagues then? Nothing about her made any sense, but she had a wicked sense of humor, was hot as hell and so nice to have around. And, of course, there was that smile. The sex was good. God, was the sex good with Danny? It always was. Sometimes frantic, sometimes slow and loving, sometimes fun and experimental. It was on a level I had never experienced before. She looked at me in that weirdly intense way, as if she was illy liking what she was seeing. I couldn't blame her, as I probably looked at her the same way. I just couldn't get enough of her. I couldn't imagine a life without her. I figured I'd have to find out someday, but was quite willing to postpone that day into the indefinite future. The sex was great, the love was obviously real, but everything else was uncertain. I guess I must have looked pretty happy. Yeah, it's the same for me. I've never felt it before, not like this, she told me after watching me for a while. Really? Wrong answer, and it earned me a semi-loving punch in the ribs. What do you think? That I do this all the time? Just for your information, mister, my job pretty much turned me into a loner. I might have gotten even less sex than you, buddy. I seriously doubt that. What is your job anyway? Saving idiot American vending machine technicians for the Uzbek government. It's a deal they made with the Pope to appease Greenpeace. We both had to snort. You must have been pretty busy then. It has its moments. What about you? I'm an idiot American vending machine technician who needed to be saved. I know that, smart ass. Why did you need to be saved anyway? Time travelers try to kill me because of a vending machine service I will fuck up in the future, which will eventually lead to World War III. Ah, I see. The usual story. Those conversations were fun, but I was also tired of avoiding that enormous elephant right in the middle of the room. If our relationship was to have a chance, we'd need to be honest. Problem was, I just didn't dare to. Move in with me, she said out of the blue. What? Damn, she already mockingly called me the what man. I needed to get rid of that. Really? I own a big house. I would. She surprised me by blushing like a schoolgirl. Forget it. No. I'm honored. You trust me enough to invite me? I do, she shyly answered. Oh my. Of course, I'd love to. One evening, we were cuddling in front of her fireplace. It was one of those perfect moments. She looked into my eyes for what seemed like hours. I would have loved to break the tension by looking away, but was totally unable to. Looking away from her had always been a task, and it turned out to be impossible when she looked at me like this. I decided I didn't really want to look away from her, anyway. Okay, she just stated, as is that explained anything? I sensed that she had come to an important decision, but had no idea what that meant. Okay? I answered, hoping she hadn't decided to kill me. Okay, she confirmed. Good. You're Michael Wilson. I know. Hey, wait. How did she know my surname? I couldn't remember ever having mentioned that. I'm glad you do. I'm Danny Everson. That is my real name. Cool. Michael Wilson is real as well. I know. This was among the weirdest conversations I ever had, and I'd had quite a few recently. By rights, you should be dead now. I know. You've had a lot of bad luck, starting with your choice of a wife, continuing with having to travel with that atrocious suitcase, and not ending up with $3 million of drug money you never wanted. I was too stunned to answer. She had known everything all the time. You are also pretty clueless. You didn't manage to properly disappear, even with a suitcase full of unmarked money. You didn't notice your wife was cheating for a long time. You didn't even manage to hide the location of your money from me. Wait, you know. Of course, I do. One of us has to be smart, right? Anyway, you're lucky to be that nice, charming, and damn good looking, or I wouldn't have chosen you as my retirement companion. Wait, what? You've heard me right. You don't even have to worry about your damn money, I have much more than you do. That suitcase mix-up turned out to be the best thing that happened to you in a long time. Okay, now it's getting ridiculous. You better shut up now, as this mix-up was what brought us together. If you know what's good for you, you better not deny it. Okay, I admit that's a distinct advantage. Still, that's not worth much if we both end up being killed. That won't happen. You're in the hands of a professional now. What are you anyway, Danny? Some kind of mafia killer? I hoped she wouldn't be insulted, but she just shrugged it off. Not exactly, although it was a tempting career option for a while. The best term for describing what I did might be skip tracer. I find people who don't want to be found. And you killed them afterwards? No, not usually. I only killed in self-defense if it couldn't be avoided. There are specialists for that kind of work. Shit. She found people for the mafia and had no problem finding me. Okay, so there will be a specialist waiting for me? No, as I haven't reported you. I've been wanting to retire and have just been looking for an unlucky sod to share my retirement with. I'm sorry, but I've chosen you, and there isn't much you can do about it. I have you under my spell. I was elated, but tried not to let it show too much. Instead, I acted as if I considered her proposal. So what you propose is that we enjoy the money we have, remain a happy couple, fall in love even more than we already have, and just enjoy life in general? Yes, and don't forget lots of sex and me keeping you alive. Does that sound like a deal? I guess it sounds better than being shot in the head by Vinny. But only slightly better, I guess? I stopped the bantering with a prolonged kiss. Does that mean you accept, Michael? Of course, I'd have to be the biggest idiot ever to refuse that offer. No, don't say it, I added when she lifted her finger to say something. Still, aren't you a tad optimistic about our chances against the whole mafia? The whole mafia, she snorted. As if. Yes, there are some bigger organizations, but a lot is just some local halfwits doing some shady business together. In this case, it's Vinny trying to expand his business from fencing and broken cars to drugs. He borrowed your $3 million from Fat Alberto, which is a problem for him if he doesn't pay it back. Vinny doesn't have some kind of cartel. He only had a handful of people at the best of times. I don't know how many are left, as he seems to have encountered some cash flow problems. He wasn't even able to give me my down payment, which was the reason I stalled reporting you in the first place. I don't know how many guys he still has when he can't pay them. Their loyalty is usually strictly based on cash. In any case, it's funny how this started. Your loving cheating wife Doris found it amusing to buy the same ugly suitcase twice and give one to her lover and one to her husband. Of course, she couldn't know that little joke would lead to her own demise. Wow, was all I could say. That's interesting, but also a bit scary. Why? You know a lot about me, much more than I knew myself. What's my star sign? Scorpio, and that's a good thing, as I would have had to kill you otherwise. We both had to laugh. Okay, you're wrong about that, but it's still scary. You know so much about me, I know nothing about you. Yeah, you are a bit at my mercy. That's cool, I can live with that. Mercy, my ass, I said, picked her up and carried her into the bedroom while she giggled happily. Well, metaphorically speaking, she added before I silenced her for good. Well, not actually for good, but it was a while before either of us felt like talking again. Seriously, what do you need to know? She resumed our talk after it was interrupted by a round of fantastic sex. Your age, for example. Your history. Don't you know anything? You never ask a lady about her age, which is 32 in this case. Lady, as if. A hired hand for the mafia, I'd say, corrupted by my irresistible charm. Yes, a hired hand, but not just for criminals. I wasn't just hired by guys like Vinny, but also by corporations or wives looking for ex-husbands who forgot to pay their child support or even the authorities, she answered after a loving punch in my ribs. You should stop referring to the mafia when we talk about him anyway. He's just a small-time criminal, although a dangerous one. Glad to hear that. I'm dangerous as well. I won't say it's going to be easy, but I think we can make it, she said, suddenly opening up and sounding very serious and a bit concerned. We will. I'm sure we will, I tried to convince both of us. A few days later, Danny returned to the subject. This needs to be resolved one way or other. I won't run from those assholes for my whole life and end up being caught by surprise. We need to fight them, and we need to do so on our home turf. I don't know. I'm just a vending. Her lips were taut and her eyes flashed as she interrupted me. Yeah. A vending machine technician. Keep hiding behind that title. You know what you mean when you say that? I'm a loser, and this is my excuse for fucking things up again later. You refuse to see yourself as a winner. Doris fucked up. She should have pulled you out of your misery, built you up, given you confidence. She tore you down instead, and then was unhappy about the result. You, on the other hand, feel comfortable in that role. It means you don't need to be ambitious, daring, or creative. You can keep your ass on the sofa until your life has passed you by. To say I was shocked would have been an understatement. I thought we had a good thing going. It really hurt to hear what she truly thought about me. Mostly because it was absolutely true. I began, but ran out of steam immediately. But I'm not Doris. It doesn't matter if she took your confidence away or if you never had any. She could have had a great guy at her side if she had just seen your potential. You're damn good looking, caring, and genuinely nice, and I can fix the rest. I had to laugh out loud. She was right. It had been obvious as hell all the time. I was a lazy loser. Whenever something had happened in my life, others had driven me. Doris, Vinny, and now Danny. So you want me to stand up against people manipulating me? Damn right. I'm the only one manipulating you from now on. She laughed and placed a big kiss on my mouth. We're going to be equals. That's why I'm asking you if we should fight them, so we can live without the threat they pose. Okay, so we'd meet them here at your house? That would be my vote. It's secluded and we could take our time preparing it. Okay, cameras, traps, sniper rifles? That's the way to go, honey. Okay. I agree. Let's do this together. Okay, she had gotten her way, but she was the expert. The important thing was, I had been asked for my opinion. I could get used to that, I decided. How are we going to lure them here? No problem. I know how to discreetly let them know our whereabouts when the time has come. They are here, she whispered while still shaking my shoulder. What? Who? I answered, still dazed from being rudely yanked out of a very pleasant dream. What do you think? The milkman? What? Oh, sorry. One of the motion detectors? Yes, at the front gate. I briefly wondered how I had managed to miss the alarm sound. They don't care much for subtlety. Okay, let's check the cameras. I was fully awake by then, but still wanted my dream back. Shit, this was serious. Either we or they were going to be dead in the morning, and the outcome solely depended on how good we were. We had prepared ourselves well, but our strategy had one major flaw. One person in our team was just a vending machine technician. Okay, I was not supposed to think like that anymore, but it was still true. Danny's property was pretty big, and her house was as secure as a normal house could be. She had 8 security cameras near the house anyway. We had taken the time to install 7 additional ones, each with separate infrared lights. In most cases, we had placed them where we had electricity anyway. That meant the whole area wasn't completely covered. After waking the PC, we had a good idea what was going on. They had chosen to simply use the main gate. That was wise, as the area was pretty inaccessible otherwise. They jumped over the gate, probably assuming it was wired. They were right about that, but we had installed additional light barriers, which had tripped the alarm. Thanks to the infrared lamps, the camera picture was crystal clear. We saw 2 guys, armed to the teeth, but without night vision goggles. One was clearly Vinny, but I didn't know the other one. That's Fat Alberto himself, Danny informed me. He's the one Vinny borrowed the money from. What I saw on the monitor looked like a guy fresh from a fitness convention. How the hell did he get that name? I have no idea. Some say he's ex-special forces or some shit, but I'm not convinced. I think he's always been a small-time thug. Still, everyone agrees he's extremely dangerous and ruthless. He might have been trained by people who know what they're doing. If he's the money in the background, what is he doing here? Oh, he's definitely a hands-on guy, and he rarely relies on anyone doing his work. I'm not surprised to see him. Meanwhile, they had wandered out of the camera image. We still had plenty of time before they reached the house. Okay, what do we do now? Plan A? She had to snort. Smart ass. As if we had more than one. So yes, let's follow Plan A. See how they want to do this and try to stay alive. Our plan was a bit more detailed than that, but not much. The two of us would never be able to cover all routes they could choose to get us. We'd just have to keep watching them and then react as best as we could. We had played through a lot of scenarios, but agreed that reality would probably not follow any of them. The first deviation was already that there were just two of them. Why didn't they bring any cannon fodder? I asked Danny. Not sure. I'm a bit surprised, as well. I was just as surprised Fat Al could come up with 3 million. It might be all he had, or maybe he borrowed it himself. I guess they don't have the cash for troops anymore. They surprised us by following the dirt track straight from the gate to the house. We had more or less only covered that route with cameras and other features because they were very convenient to install there. We hadn't really expected them to be that straightforward. In any case, it gave us camera coverage again after a few minutes. There they are, I exclaimed, totally unnecessarily. You don't say, she snorted. Wait, they can't possibly be running straight into. I began, but was rudely interrupted by Al stumbling into a hole I had dug earlier. I really hadn't expected those traps to be of any use. The area was huge and I lost interest in digging after just 12 holes. His stepping in one was akin to winning some negative lottery. They did, Danny dryly commented. Shit, that has to hurt. I honestly felt for the guy. He may have come there to kill me, but I still winced imagining what just happened to his foot. I had once seen a Viet Cong documentary about the traps they built. One was some kind of funnel of downward angled spikes. That was what kept his foot right where it was, in a very painful way. You really feel for that guy? No, of course not. Still. My God, that has to be gruesome. She suddenly kissed me, briefly obscuring the camera picture. What was that for? For being such a nice, caring guy. He deserves it, but you still feel for him. Hey, you even built that trap. Yeah, that was the one occasion having a service technician around was pretty handy, right? I'm really good at welding. We heard Al scream like hell from the distance, even without the microphones. He must have tried to yank his foot out, driving the spikes deep into his foot. Vinny calmly turned around as the picture showed Al obviously pleading for help. Vinny watched the scene, but didn't do anything. He's assessing Al's usefulness, Danny remarked. You don't think? Again, I was rudely interrupted by reality. Vinny stepped behind Al and shot him in the neck. Al slumped forward like a wet towel and I felt slightly sick. So far, this is pretty easy, Danny remarked in her usual laconic way. Hey, you don't chicken out on me now. Would you have felt better about killing him yourself? No, of course not. You're right, Vinny did us a favor. But why did he do it? Al wasn't useful anymore. Vinny just got out of having to pay back 3 million. Speaking of Vinny, she added, things will get interesting now. He really is pretty good, and this is where we should think about starting to fight for our lives. You have done this before, right? I've had to kill people before, but never in a situation like this. Vinny is much more experienced in this, I'm afraid. Let's get going. Vinny had vanished from the camera image again, and we couldn't spot him in any of the other cameras. Shit. The moon was full, so he'd probably be able to move around without a problem, but I hadn't expected him to spot the cameras. Maybe it was just bad luck. At least the house itself was completely covered and the forest around it was brightly illuminated. Shit, I can't find him, Danny said a bit too frantically to soothe my nerves. She was still zapping the cameras, but he had vanished from the face of the earth. Okay, that's it. We need to get in position, she added. He will be here any moment. Get your rifle and try to spot him. We moved to our positions in opposite corners of the house, each with a rifle and a handgun, scanning the forest. I stared until my eyes almost popped out, but still couldn't see the slightest movement. We had trained for this situation, but when we did, it had been a bright sunny day and things looked pretty easy. Now it was dark, scary, and someone had already died. This was dead serious. To make things worse, the death wish I sometimes had while still married to Doris had completely vanished since I had met Danny. I really wanted both of us to stay alive. A loud boom shocked the shit out of me. Debris flew through the hallway, coming from the kitchen. Shit, he had used some kind of grenade. I needn't have bothered locking the front door. The following silence was deafening and the darkness absolute. It seemed the explosion had knocked out the power supply. Shit. We hadn't expected any of this, or we would have gotten ourselves some night vision goggles. I stared into the darkness with wide open eyes and tried to listen to every small sound. Nothing. Then a shot shocked me, followed by another one. I had no idea who was shooting at whom. The question was interesting enough to get my ass moving towards the kitchen, where Danny had been. The shooting had stopped, but there was clearly some fighting going on. My first instinct was to keep out of it, but the woman I loved was in trouble. I needed to help her. I needed to step up and fight for her. I heard the typical thuds of soft bodies hit by something hard. I just hoped Danny was the one doing the hitting. I finally stumbled into the kitchen and saw mostly nothing. Moving shadows, no idea who was who, and those damn sickening thuds again. I hoped it was Danny doling them out, but I had my doubts. I could clearly hear her moaning now, and she didn't sound happy. I so wished to have some light and wondered how they were able to fight in the near darkness anyway. Again, a thud, and now it was clearly her cry of pain. I really needed to get some light. Wait. There was a flashlight in the kitchen. The shelves near the entrance. That's where I was. Not believing my luck, I fumbled until I felt the reassuring metal tube. Success. Now I had a flashlight in one hand and a loaded handgun in the other. Feeling confident, I switched on the flashlight and was greeted by Danny lying on the floor, her arm lifted to protect herself from the blows. Her leg was angled in a sick way and obviously broken. She was badly battered, bleeding and clearly defeated. Vinny stood above her, a log of wood over his head, just about to deliver the decisive blow. His face and one arm were bleeding, but he didn't seem to care. Drop, was all I could utter before the wood was thrown into my direction. He was quick, I had to give him that. Without thinking, I ducked the thing and shot at him without really thinking about it. The log only grazed my ear, causing me to fall backwards and losing the light while I heard him flinching. The flashlight rolled away from me, causing weird light effects, while I heard Vinny's grunting and swearing slowly getting nearer. It sounded suspiciously as if he was crawling towards me. I must have hit him somewhere, but that didn't stop him. Problem was, I couldn't shoot into the dark, as I could have hit Danny. Instead of just standing up, I crawled backwards, towards the flashlight. The guy was motivated, I had to give him that. On the other hand, he was fighting for his life, as was I. The thought drove me even more and I soon reached the errant flashlight. Pointing it directly at him, I saw his face clearly for the first time. He had clearly taken quite a few hits as well. One eye was swollen shut, his mouth was bleeding and he didn't look too amused. "You fucking asshole," was how he greeted me. "Hey Vinny, long time no see," I said, trying to convince both of us that I was a damn cool bastard. Neither of us was buying it. At least I stood up, to stop the undignified crawling around. Vinny looked contemptuously at me from his one good eye. "You won't shoot me. You don't have the balls. You looked away for years while I banged Doris. I think you even enjoyed it, right?" I really didn't give a shit about her, you know? It doesn't matter, you're too weak to kill me. He wanted to goad me, which didn't seem like the best strategy when a guy with a gun stands in front of you. Still, what he said might have been right. I had never intentionally hurt anyone and it seemed quite unlikely I'd be able to pull the trigger. In which case, he'd kill me. He was wrong about me accepting Doris' affair, though. I really had no idea, and I certainly wouldn't have enjoyed it. We both looked to his right, where the flashlight had revealed a handgun on the floor. I had no idea whether it was his or Danny's, and it didn't really matter. He grinned at me condescendingly while he moved his right hand towards the gun. Danny! He grabbed it. He'd kill Danny, too. I couldn't let him do that. He started to lift it towards me. I fired. It surprised me just as much as him. We both looked at the small dark spot in his breast, which marked an interesting turn of events. I had actually killed a human being. Another one, to be precise. I hoped this wouldn't become a habit. You, he said before his head and right hand fell back onto the floor. I couldn't wait for conflicting emotions to take over. That might come later, rescuing Danny had to come first. What took you so long? She greeted me jokingly. She had watched the whole scene and the worried look had just left her pretty face. You know how it is. You meet old acquaintances and it takes forever to get rid of them. I hope he won't pester you again. I guess he won't. I'm pretty sure, actually. It seems he's had enough. That's nice, but we're really going to have to talk about double tapping, Michael. Just one bullet might not be enough if you want to succeed in this business in the long run. Wait, what? You said you weren't a killer. No, I said I wasn't at the time we met. I was just joking, though. I'm out of whatever business. You may take me to the hospital now. My leg seems to be a bit out of shape. As you command, my lady. Her leg was indeed broken, just as 2 fingers were. The rest were just bruises and lacerations. Our story about a biking accident seemed a little thin to me, but either the doc wasn't the suspicious sort, or he was glad to have a reason to go on to his other patients and not waste his time calling the cops on me. Danny had to stay in the hospital for 5 days, and I visited her all the time. I bought flowers, sweets, and magazines. I was terribly afraid she'd break up with me now that the threat was gone. She was equally frantic. She refused to release my hand whenever I was near her bed. She looked pitifully worried whenever I went home. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. Danny, I'm not sure what you plan to do, but I love you and I'm not going anywhere, unless you chase me away. She sighed and relaxed visibly while she pulled me close to her. Yes, she murmured with a contented smile. Yes? I didn't ask anything. I know, but my answer will always be yes. I love you, too, Michael, and I'm yours if you want me. Good. Good, I just sighed and felt the tension leave me. We stayed like this for a while, just enjoying the time together. You can ask the damn question now, she softly said. What? Don't go what on me now, okay? Her sense of mischief was returning quickly. I decided she must be recovering. Then it finally dawned on me. Danny Everson, will you marry me? Will you become my wife? She hooped quietly in a really cute way. I already answered that. But as you're a bit slow sometimes, yes. The answer will always be yes. She pulled me down for a really, really nice kiss. I'd love to marry you, Michael. Now it was my turn to whoop. What took you so long anyway? She asked, still smiling contentedly. I knew you were the one for quite a while. My damn self-doubt, I answered. But I'm working on it. I really am. We never really returned to her house. I used my training and removed the corpses while she was in hospital, cleaned up the blood and employed someone to start the repairs. After our quick Vegas wedding, with her beautiful white dress hiding the cast on one leg, we started looking for a nice place without bad memories. She said it was the fresh start we needed and I didn't disagree. I was deliriously happy, and her having more money than I did had nothing to do with it. Burying an empty turquoise suitcase was my last symbolic goodbye to life as an unhappy vending machine technician. We had tried to burn it, but the damn thing wouldn't catch fire. When Danny finally stopped laughing, she said it wouldn't burn because it was too ugly to die, we would just have to bury it, so we dug a hole together and tossed it in. I said a last farewell to Doris because I thought I should, then turned happily toward my beautifully smiling new wife and my new life.